Appreciate everybody being here for the Web of Life Shamanic Journey Circle. Our intention is to journey together, to combine our energies together, to create spiritual healing for the Web of Life. There's a lot of things we can do in the physical world that can help in terms of our mindfulness and the way we walk on the earth and the things that we practice. But there's also a part where in the spiritual world, we need to do spiritual healing, both in terms of how that spiritual healing can affect the earth, Mother Earth, and the Web of Life, and also in terms of how it affects our human consciousness, because us as humans are caretakers and custodians of the Web of Life, and that's our job as human beings, is to be caretakers and custodians of the Web of Life. And traditionally, in almost every traditional culture, that has been the case. Right? So it's been about, okay, if I'm harvesting this wood for a bow or for a building, I'm not going to just cut down the forest or take the best tree. I'm going to take the tree that lets the forest grow the best. I'm going to take that sapling that's crowded out so that the other sapling can grow. So you can see a forest that's been maintained in that way that still supports human use of the resources, but is actually healthier than one that's been left alone. So that's the intention in terms of how we shift our consciousness, both individually and collectively, and in the world around us. That's part of what we do here with these journey circles. And what I love about this work is that everybody's contribution, the collective, the synergy of it is much greater than the sum of the parts. So while working together, by combining our energies together, we actually have a much larger impact than if we're doing it individually. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome everybody and ask everybody to just briefly introduce yourself, tell me your name, where you're from. Some of you I know, some are new. So, you can please pop on the screen and introduce yourself when you're ready. And why don't we start with Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia. Not one of the new ones. I am here in Florida, and I have been working with Scott for at least 3 years, right? Maybe more. I don't know. It seems like forever. No, I'm kidding. But I'm really happy to be here. I love the Web of Life. I love when we come together and we can make a difference. And so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. And Jim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim. I'm from California, and I have been working with Scott for a while, and I see some of my fellow classmates on this call. I am about to start level 3, which for me will be ground zero of shamanic medicine healing. I'm really looking forward to that, and I love what we're doing here today. I think that's the heart of much of our work.
Thank you, Jim. Sherry?
My name's Sherry, and I'm from Miami, Florida. It's really hot down here. So I've been working with Scott for, well over a couple years. And it feels timeless, feels like yesterday. So that's a major plus. So just rolling with wherever this is taking me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Sherry. Lindsay?
Hi guys, I'm Lindsay. I am from a little town called High River in Alberta, Canada. I have been in the shamanic lands for, a lifetime, or maybe perhaps many lifetimes, but really about 16 years ago when I had a rude awakening. And so here I am. And so I just thought I'd check this out. So glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay. Adele?
Hi, everybody. I am from Kauai, and I am not a practicing shaman, but it's new, not new, if you know what I mean. I have memory from other lifetimes, and hopefully we'll be working with Scott soon. I don't know what else to say. I'm an artist.
Thanks, Adele. We will see you in September as well at the retreat. Thanks. Hi, Luana. You are in Germany. Thank you for coming in at midnight. I really appreciate that, and for introducing yourself via text. And Anna, nice to see you.
Hi everyone. I'm Anna. I'm relatively new to shamanic healing, and I live in Georgia, US. It's been raining almost every day in Georgia, and it's a lot of cleansing, and I think I've been receiving a lot of healing as well. So I'm excited to give back what I can to the spirit world. I'm excited.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. Blossom.
Hi, I'm Blossom. This is my first time here. I'm currently in Ohio in the States. I'm actually not even sure how I came across this, but I'm very excited to be here and I'm very interested in healing.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Blossom, and welcome. Tony?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Hello, my name is Tony. I'm in Kissimmee, Florida. Right now, I've been on the spiritual journey for a little while, and I was intrigued. I just want to learn a little bit more about new life and new experiences. So thank y'all for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us and tuning in, Tony.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Hi, I'm Linda. I am here from Cleveland, Ohio, and I have worked with Scott for a couple years. So happy to be here.
Thanks. Great to have you. Great to see you. Larry?
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm in California near Santa Cruz, and I've been working with Scott, about a year now, Scott, and have done a couple of your classes, and I really look forward to this time together with all these new faces.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Larry. I always enjoy seeing you on the calls. And Drew, could you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, honestly just saw this on Eventbrite. Not too familiar really what this is, did a bit of research, but just joined out of curiosity and I'm looking forward to learn.
Thanks. And where are you joining us from?
Sorry, I didn't realize my camera's off. I am joining from Nashville, Tennessee.
Great. And I'm going to ask you and the other people who are new, have you have you journeyed before to the lower world or watched the tutorial video that link to that I have on my site?
I'm not sure I have. I honestly came into this very unfamiliar, full transparency, forgot about it, saw a notification on my phone and had some free time, so I just wanted to join.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm going to give a little, very brief, in a moment after Christiane gets to say hi, I'm going to give a very brief overview for the new folks who haven't journeyed yet on how to journey, and then we'll keep going into it. So thanks for letting me know, and thanks very much for joining us. It's always great to have new people join. So
I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
yeah, thanks. And Christiane? You're still muted though. Okay, I'll introduce you for yourself. How about that? Christiane, I believe, is still in Thailand. Is that correct? As a teacher, teaching English in Thailand, and from Canada originally, and has studied with me for a number of years. And thank you for being here with us. And Elizabeth, thank you for joining. If you could just pop on and introduce yourself. We're just finishing up introductions. Okay. When you're able to turn on your camera for a moment and pop on your audio, Elizabeth, please just do so and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you found us, where you are, things like that. Introduce yourself. And while we wait for you to get that sorted on your end, I'm going to give a brief overview to the group. For those of you who have not journeyed before, shamanic journeying is something that has been part of human society for 50,000 years or more. It is the access of our spirit mind, which is something that all humans have a ability to do. It's our birthright. It's part of our mind that we enter when we're in theta state, naturally. Okay. However, shamanic journeying is a more intentional way of entering that state than, for example, dreaming. And so when we journey to the lower world, entering theta state, entering the shamanic state of consciousness, entering our spirit mind awareness, we see things or perceive things that we do not perceive through our normal, ordinary senses. Okay, that's the realm of our logical mind, what we perceive through our ordinary senses. However, what we perceive in our spirit mind is different. And often that different perspective allows us to perceive things that and solve problems and create healing scenarios that we're not able to do in our logic mind, in our normal day-to-day consciousness. Okay, so it gives us a different perspective. It gives us a different way of approaching and healing. It gives us different sight into the world and into ourselves. And it's actually very easy to do. So the way you enter, for those of you who haven't journeyed before, the way you enter into your spirit mind, one of the ways that you can enter into your spirit mind is through rhythmic entrainment. So for us, we're going to be entraining with the drum when I beat the drum. And what you're going to do when you hear the drum rhythm, I want you to pick a place that serves as an entry to the lower world. So it would give you the energy of going down, something like a pond or a spring or climbing down the roots of the tree, someplace in nature. And when you hear the drum start, you're going to descend, go down through that starting point, through the hole, into the lower world. And when you come out, you might perceive a tunnel. When you pop out at the end of the tunnel, you're going to verify, am I in the lower world? Once you get to the lower world, you're going to ask, am I in the lower world? You verify that you're there, and then you're going to ask for your power animal to appear. Say, please, will my power animal come meet me? I'm here to help bring healing to the web of life. Please help me bring healing to the web of life. Okay, that's all you're going to do in the journey, and then you're going to be with the experiences. You don't guide the experiences, you follow what's happening. Okay, we're not directing it and controlling it with our thinking mind. We're just actually allowing the experience to occur and notating what the experience is. And we're adding an intention, the intention being to provide healing to the web of life, to Mother Earth. Okay, after the drumming stops, you'll hear a callback beat. And when you hear that callback beat is going to be a faster beat. You're going to reverse your tracks and come back to your starting point and then come back into your body. After we're done with that, we're going to take a few minutes to write down notes of your experience. And then those of you who want to share will be welcome to share on the video what you experienced in your journey. Okay, so is that clear to everybody who is new, who hasn't journeyed with us before? Okay. And for those of you who are new, who haven't journeyed before, there is a more in-depth, detailed tutorial video on my website. If you have, just go to my website, you can find it there under the Learn Shamanism page. If you have trouble finding it, just email me and I'll point it to you so that you can get more detail about how to journey after this. Okay, so now that that is taken care of, I want to open it up for anybody who wants to share about what healing the web of life means to them. Oh, thank you. Elizabeth is saying that she's not able to use her video or audio right now because she's at work joining us. So thanks for joining us, Elizabeth. We completely understand. No worries. I'd like to open this up for anybody who would like to share right now about what the Web of Life Journey Circle means means to them, and any intention that you might have for today's session. So anybody like to share? Go ahead, Alicia.
So I have been doing this with Scott for a while, and in the beginning it was just I was kind of getting used to journeying and used to Scott and used to all of it. And now I feel such a strong pull, like such a strong desire to be with you folks, like-minded people that want to do the same thing that Scott, has a passion for and that I want to do, is finding ways to help it heal. Since I started working with Scott, so much more has happened in the world, as we all know. So any little piece ripples out so big. I just feel so honored to be a part of this. I just feel like it's very, very, very important.
Thank you, Alicia. And that what you say about the ripples expanding outwards is it's really the most important part, right? Because when I touch one strand of the web, when any of us touch one strand of the web, whether it's a person or another living being, that vibration ripples out in concentric rings, and we don't know how that is going to affect others, right? I might say something, you might say something to somebody in passing that inspires them to say something to somebody else that then inspires that person, and that changes their entire direction in life. Okay. And a friend of mine had told me the story that he was walking out of, like a PetSmart or some big store like that, and he ran into somebody, and he took the 3 minutes to talk with him and counsel that person. He didn't really, it was just an acquaintance, but that person was really in need in that moment. And he took 5 minutes out of his day to really, just be present with that person and hold space for him. And he didn't really think much of it and went about his day. And about 6 or 8 weeks later, that person called him up, contacted him again, and said, thank you so much. What you said made all the difference to me in the world. And it completely changed. And now I made all these decisions in my life that moved me forward. Right? So we never know what little act, whether it's in the spirit world or in the physical world or both, and how that is going to reverberate outwards. And then how that person, how they change their life, maybe now they're contributing to the, other people or the web of life in a different way, in a more positive way. So that's exactly what our intention is here. What I do sometimes in these journeys also is just ask for healing light to come down to the planet itself to help restore balance to the planet. That's another way to do the journey. If there isn't a specific thing that comes to mind for you, sometimes it is about just holding space and I'll say stitching together or restitching the tears in the fabric of the web of life, because unfortunately human activity has created a lot of tears within the fabric of the web of life. So we want to weave that fabric back together. And so we can ask to be shown how have those tears come into being, and what can we do in the spirit world to help bring that back together. There's so many ways in which we can contribute in this way. Also, if there's a specific location that you have in mind that where, the earth is hurting, where there was pollution or damage, you can channel the energy towards that particular place as well. And so we're combining the energy of the group to be able to work in a lot of different ways. And what's also, I find always very fascinating is that when we come back and share, if we put together the individual pieces of the stories that we tell from our own journeys, it does create almost like a unified whole, with part of it coming to each person in different ways. So, Adele.
I just want to say that I'm also part of another group where we do clearings in Hawaii, the Ho'oponopono group. And the reason I specifically wanted to be part of this group as well is because even though it's easy to do clearings for things that you know about yourself and your own life and other people, there's a lot about nature that we can do, but we don't know about. And this is a wonderful opportunity to work with that. Specifically, I believe, because there's a lot of things that we are bombarded with energetically. And sometimes we feel a little bit helpless because how do you fight something you don't even understand? There's a lot of frequency wars and things going on. And this to me is an absolutely fantastic opportunity to say, where is it needed most? And, can we direct it more there as opposed to just ourselves? And then if I may request, if it's possible for us to focus on the whales, one thing I noticed while we had this, they called it the tsunami effect, Scott, that we had here on the island, on the path of this apparent tsunami that was supposed to hit us all the way from the earthquake, there were whales being breached all over the place, and nobody spoke about them, 2 and 3 at a time. And these are things that happen under the radar. We don't really know what happened. Why we had all these big things and tsunamis and things. And I'm very fond of the whales. And if we can maybe focus on that, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, we can certainly direct some energy to healing the whales. And also, I would say, as far as, other frequencies, what's very important, what I found is very important, is the more strongly we connect to the benevolent spirits, to the light, to the positive forces, that creates a force field around us, that it doesn't matter what the other frequencies are. So if you think about it in a musical term, right? If you're in a group and you're singing and one person's singing off key, and you start really tuning into how off key they are, the whole thing's going to crash. But if you just hold your pitch, okay, it's gonna, and there's a group that's holding the pitch, it's gonna override that person singing off key. Okay, same thing with rhythm. If you're you're playing polyrhythmic music with drums and you're holding the beat, and then there's somebody who's just like, they can't really get it, right? If everybody goes and starts to entrain with that person, it's train wreck. But if everybody holds it, eventually that person has no choice but to entrain with the rhythm that goes. And so the same thing works with these frequencies. And that's a really important thing to understand. Yes, we don't want to pretend that negative forces don't exist. They do. Constraining forces exist, parasitic forces exist. Absolutely, they do. However, if we focus too much on them, we begin to entrain with it unconsciously. It begins to siphon our energy. Okay, so the trick is really to go into those benevolent forces, connect to Great Spirit, connect to the center of the universe, ground into Mother Earth, and really bring that light in very strongly. And then that is what we entrain with. And the more that we can do that as individuals, as groups, as a collective of humanity, then the stronger that force is. And the people who are offbeat or out of tune, they become less and less relevant. They become increasingly marginalized. I know that's hard to imagine with all the things that go on in the world, but this has been shown to me time and again very clearly in my journey work, that the more we engage with those types of parasitic forces, the more we focus on that, the less effective we are. Okay, we can acknowledge them, we can say out of here, but then we have to entrain very strongly with what it is that we are trying to create. What am I saying yes to, right? What am I wanting to bring in? So yeah, thank you, Adele, for sharing that. Okay, would anybody else like to share anything they want to focus on today or anything they want to contribute to the circle before we start our journey? Okay, so for those of you who haven't journeyed yet, please take a moment to pick a starting point to the lower world. Those of you who already know how to journey, you know what to do. I'm going to pop off the screen here to get my drum. You'll hear the drum beat start in a moment. Make sure that your microphone is muted so that we don't get any feedback. Once the drumming is complete, I'll come back and I'll give everybody a few minutes to take some notes, and then we will share. Okay. Here. Who'd like to share first about their journey? Sherry.
Great. I went to the lower world and met with Great Spirit, and I saw a Ferris wheel of whales going through the water and up above the water in a pattern. And one by one, they were released. The pattern continued, but they were freed from the pattern. I also saw every being on the planet having what doesn't belong in each of the beings pulled from them. And I asked that be transformed, sent back to the origin, or just disappear and dissolve.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sherry. That's really beautiful to have that pulled out, that which doesn't belong to be removed, and then to be filled with light. Yeah. Thank you. Who'd like to share next? Anna.
Yeah, so I was traveling down to the lower world and meet with my elk spirit guide. When I went down there, I saw a beautiful, calm lake at night, and the moon was shining over, and it was beautiful yin energy. And I think, the theme of the whole journey was about femininity and embracing the feminine aspect, how embracing Mother Earth as her healing journey is going on, of all the changes and all the weather patterns, all the eruption. It's to acknowledge her and to send healing and to share the love and embrace Mother Earth. And just really embrace the rising of the feminine energy, and just really soak in the yin energy and just let that the feminine energy heal. That was my journey.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And that's so important, right? Because that feminine, that passive and simultaneously creative energy, the receptive and creative energy, right? That's what allows us to follow, right? You could say that the yin energy is a following energy, a yielding energy, right? And so that also implies a great deal of listening, right? Listening to the world around us. It's hard to make change if you don't listen properly, right? Imagine going to a doctor and you start to describe your symptoms, and the doctor said, "No, I don't need to hear your symptoms. I was having this going on for me yesterday. I'm just going to give you this medication that I take because it makes me feel better." You'd be like, "What are you talking about? You need to hear what's going on for me. It's not about you." Okay. So that's a very yang type of energy, if you will, right? I know what to do. I'm just going to do it. I'm not getting any information in. I'm just prescribing without actually intaking the information, assessing or diagnosing. And so when we have a yin energy, that implies a listening to, a being receptive to, a yielding to the conditions that are outside of us, and then molding our actions to be in right relationship or right alignment with what is occurring outside of us. There's this very, I'll call it a toxic misinformation and it's not necessarily from a malicious standpoint, but it's a misinformation that we create the world around us, but we actually don't. We don't create the world. We're just one of many dreamers in the world. It's how we respond to the world around us creates our future, but we don't create the world around us. I don't create you or your life circumstances, but I can listen to you and respond to you appropriately, right? No more than you create me or anybody else in this Zoom room here. And so that's part of that yin, that listening aspect of this is what's happening in the world here now. like a still lake. I can actually see or hear, perceive what needs to be done. And that's how we bring that type of healing in. It's like a listening, and actually, rather than going, oh, I don't want to look at it, it's too painful for me to see, I'm just going to go about my life and keep doing my actions, irrespective of how my actions impact the world around me. That's a really beautiful and deep journey. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that, Anna. Who'd like to share next? Alicia.
So I went to the lower world and met with my black jaguar, who then took me to another tree and said that I would be going much, much deeper into Mother Earth. So I did, and I got into it was kind of like a cave with a river running through the cave, and there was no one there. So I just kept walking until I found a bunch of bats, and Brother Bat came forward and said that he wanted to show me something. So we then flew out of the cave through a hole. It looked volcano-ish, but I don't know if we were in a volcano or not. It didn't seem to matter. What mattered was when we came out, we could see the earth. The whales were breached, as Adele had been speaking about. There was tornadoes over the water. There was, oh my goodness, flooding happening. The Earth's magnetic poles, I could feel them shifting and changing. There was a lot. It was chaos, basically. That's what Brother Bat called it. Do you see the chaos on Mother Earth? And I said, I do. And I had specifically asked what I love what Sherry and Anna brought in. I guess I was too specific because I said, what can I do to help instead of just being more specific, more general. And so then I get asked that same question again. I see all of this, but I'm here to find out what I can do. And the theme seemed to be around awareness, self-love, and consistent practices. In order to bring awareness, we have to have our own self-love and consistent practices that help us speak to people in certain ways that help their awareness as well. So I asked again, what specifically can I do besides just talking to random people in the grocery store to bring about awareness? And we start school, and I teach STEM middle schoolers. So it was suggested that I bring in some projects on the whales. Kids love whales. Kids love natural disasters. I can bring this in and let them start doing some critical thinking because Brother Bat said these kids are going to have jobs that careers we can't even think of right now. So start them thinking now. Let them find ways with these projects they can share with their parents. So then, the ripples go out beyond the children to the parents and out into the communities to bring about awareness. And so there was a bunch more of showing me, disasters and things going on and shifting, and then, just more specifics about what types of things I could bring up in classes. But when Brother Bat was done, I thanked him greatly, and that was it.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I'm going to segue into what I was shown because it ties into that and also what Anna and Sherry were shown as well, which is that in general, what we're dealing with here is the difference between collaborative forces and parasitic forces. And Adele alluded to that earlier when she was talking about those other energies. And so my journey was focused on that. Kind of what I said to you before we started journeying, Adele, about focusing on the light, focusing on bringing in the positive, focusing on aligning our frequencies with being caretakers and what we want to create without ignoring and pretending that the other doesn't exist. And what I was shown was the overall insanity of a race or a species that eats out its own environment and basically destroys its own niche for survival. And the web of life is going to continue regardless of what humans do. It's our survival niche that is going to shift, potentially radically. And the reason it can be compared to, any overpopulation where all the food gets eaten out. And most indigenous cultures knew this. They knew that we had to harvest in a way looking towards the future, looking in a collaborative and a caretaking and custodial way, right? But then there were some cultures that came in and they saw the supplies as limitless, and when they ran out, they would just take on more territory and colonize another area and keep taking more and more and more resources. Okay, in a limited viewpoint 1,000 years ago, maybe the world seemed limitless because nobody had circumnavigated it. Nobody knew what was out there. It was just onward. So, okay, that thinking went. But now, pretty much everybody knows the boundaries and the limits of the planet. Okay. And so it's absolute insanity to think, oh, we're just going to keep taking everything we can from the planet until there's no more, and then we'll go find another planet to live on. Like, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. And yet there are a lot of people with a lot of money and power and influence who actually think that way. And think about accumulating, hoarding so much for themselves personally. And I'm not talking about just money, I'm talking about just resources in general, hoarding so much for themselves personally that there isn't enough to go around for everybody else. And how they believe that would make the world a better place, even for them. It's not. It's actually not a better place for them. It's a worse place for them. They're missing out on so much when people who do that way. And so I was shown in my journey that what I'm doing with the Web of Life journey circles and my teaching of shamanic spirit medicine, just being an advocate for the idea of living as custodians and caretakers and healers of the Web of Life and spreading that consciousness is the number one contribution that I personally can make because of my skill set, right? Now, there's other people I was shown in my journey who come here on the land and they do beautiful things to restore some of the forests or some of the native plants. And that's great. And I really support that. And I do a little of that in my backyard, but I also plant non-native fruit trees because I like fruit, right? But I do have a symbiotic, I bring the life back to my yard. My yard is alive. Those of you who've been there know that there's a lot of life in my yard. And we were doing some work here last week, and we had to bring in some soil from offsite. I almost never bring in anything from offsite. I always just compost and make my own, but we were building a new retaining wall and staircase. So I needed to bring in some new soil, and we put it down, and then, we noticed that the chickens didn't touch it. They didn't dig in it at all for a week, which is very odd because they dig up my whole yard. And then I'm like, well, of course, this is dead. There's no life in it. Whereas everywhere else, there's worms and bugs and things that chickens eat, right? My whole yard is alive, but that soil was not alive yet. Of course, it will become alive as it merges in. So this is the consciousness that we want to bring, that all around us, even in small ways, we can nurture the aliveness and the interconnectedness of the web of life, being mindful of that, being caretakers of that, being custodians of that, being healers of that. When I first bought my property here, it was all dead. It was completely dead. The person had been spraying it with weed killers and planting Bermuda grass, and so I had to remediate, the whole lot basically. And so that ripple effect moves outwards, even though this is a really small lot. People see that, they get inspired, and maybe somebody with more resources than me decides to do that on their property. And that's actually happened a few times where people have gotten inspired and they have acres of land or they have the financial resources to help projects like that. So everybody makes their contribution. And as we spread that awareness, then we can bring people together synergistically to work together, right? And so that's what I'm my purpose here is to bring people together to work synergistically, and then you will find, and it leaves room, right? It leaves space for everybody's creation to come through, whether, whatever individual message, like you had, Alicia, for something very specific about introducing that into your STEM students, and other people got, which might be more general, but that will be shown how it's applied later. So anyway, I wanted to follow on with that and to really encourage what everybody individually is receiving, knowing that it's part of a broader whole and that those waves do ripple outwards. Thank you. So who'd like to share next, now that I had my little sharing? Go ahead, Lindsay.
Sorry, I'm not usually on my phone. I'm usually on my laptop. So I'm like, where's the button? Yeah, mine was interesting. I went down and I'll just sort of skip to the part that sticks out to me. Is I was sort of taken up to kind of like just under the crust of the earth, and I was kind of in this sort of bubble or cave, if you will. And it felt sort of, just dark and dense would be the word. And I started to sing, and just sing in spirit language. And I just started to sing and started to just kind of get into just a different kind of energy, just kind of transmuting some of that denseness. And I started to feel the reality of how, and this could sort of represent the earth, it can kind of represent the humans, but like how the repression of sort of denser, darker energy has been held in the bodies, held in the earth for so long, is now just right at the surface, and not just at the surface for humans, but yeah, just as a collective as well. And so I could see it start like seeping out, and kind of the earth, again, earthquake, but like the earth like cracking open, and it's like leaving and moving and shifting, and it's not kind of as deeply repressed as it once was. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, that's kind of where I was at.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That is actually pretty interesting. It's almost like that density is ready to come out and be released, ready for healing, if you will.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. Was like it feels a bit like it's already sort of, it's up because it's healed. It's up because it's shifting. It's up because we are shifting. And so yeah, I could really sense that. So it was like, yeah, it was cool to just kind of have some confirmation around that. So thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. And it's interesting because combining that with also what Alicia said about working with middle schoolers, my daughter, who's just entered 11th grade now, a couple of years back said, I know you guys are like, is she really that old? I can't believe it. Those of you who've known me for a while, like that little thing, 11th grade. She said to me something about like the, awareness, not just awareness of environmental problems. She's like, oh, that's been drilled into us since we were 6 years old, Dad. Kind of in that like teenage, like we already know all that. Like we don't want to hear any of that anymore. We don't want to read any more books about that. Like, and I'm like, yeah, but aren't you glad that you're aware of that? Aren't you glad? And she's like, yeah, but now we're wanting to know what to do about it. Right? We know that it's there because we've been educated on that for so long. So that also sounds a lot like what you're saying, Lindsay, about like it's already shifting because that consciousness is already there with that younger generation, and now it's almost like that's their baseline. And I think it was you that said, Alicia, that we have no idea what kind of jobs these kids are going to have in the future. That was you that said that? Yeah. And so it's a combination of that type of thing. Like it's coming to the surface, this whole new generation that's been born into a very, very different world than the world that we grew up in, is coming forward. And they might have some innovative solutions here. And that's why it's so important that we hold the frequency and the vibration about the consciousness and holding that consciousness, holding that awareness for people, being a model of that. Because as these young people grow and take their place in society, they're going to, make the choices between a parasitic consciousness and a collaborative consciousness. Not only collaborative with other people, but collaborative with the web of life. Are they going to act as custodians, caretakers, guardians of the web of life, or not? And that's the choice that they're gonna be making. So, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. Who else would like to share?
I'll
Adele?
So I went down to the lower world, and I was met by a leopard, a very big leopard, and I rode him. And first we went past a pasture, and there were people sitting on the side of the road, like bigger type people. Then we carried on, and we went into a forest, and he went and, I don't know how else to explain it, visited with a badger, and the badger pointed him. And then we came to a forest where there were a lot of trees. There were baboons there, and then he kind of conferred with the baboons. From there, we went forward, and then he turned like upside down, like we were running this way, and now we were running this way. And at that stage, we eventually, I think we swirled around a few times, and then we stopped, and there was a pool, and he dove into the pool. And as we went into the pool, we went lower, and we were in the ocean. And then we were met with a few orcas, and he was swimming underwater. I was still with him. And then we went really deep down to the ocean, and there were a lot of whales there. It was like they were having like a whale meeting. There was a lot of them. And they were all communicating with each other. And at some point, they all stopped and looked at me, and that was a bit weird for me because I was just watching. And then they were swimming a lot around in a circle very fast, and out came this flower, like an orange dahlia, if you know what that is. And they gave it to us. So we took it. They did say, "We will be okay." And now thinking about it, I'm not sure if they mean they will be okay or humans will be okay. And then we left. We went back, and the flower, the leopard gave that to the baboons. And then the baboon that received it, there was like something electrical happening in his body. It's like you could see the lights, how the energy was moving around in his body. And then we went from there back to the badger, and we thanked the badger. And then we went back to the area. Oh, on the way back, we went past the same pasture where the people were sitting, and now they were working in the field. Everything was like, like it was supposed to be. And then when we were back to the area where I was supposed to leave, I asked him his name, which he told me. And I said, thank you. And now I can't remember. I have to read again if I asked for a message or something. But yeah, and so I went back up through the tunnel, and the place where I enter has an in-between space. So when I came to the in-between space, it's like a cave. There were dolphins waiting for me. And they communicated with me. There was just this like a transmission of symbols. And I swam with him, and then I swam back under, and I came out on the cave where I entered. And yeah, that's it. So
Thank you, Adele. That's beautiful. I think for sure the whales are going to be okay. Not sure about the humans, but very detailed journey, and nice to be well, I guess it's funny that they were checking you out, sort of like, what are you doing here in our meeting? Thank you. We have time for a couple more people to share. Who else would like to share? Jim.
So Journey to the lower world. Water was prevalent, that's for sure, and they acknowledged that it was important today in this with what we're doing today to acknowledge that. And owl and eagle were important and almost looking from an upper world perspective. Beaver and bear were talkative, and they basically didn't. It was like, how can I say this? They weren't just killing time. They had some things to say, and because that's what I asked them. That was my intention. It was to provide healing, and in the fabric of the web of life. And so they very clearly said that we're not creating the flux around us. And that's they didn't want to get into the causal aspect of it, other than the evolution of it being very important to recognize, and our relationship with the evolution of it in the focus of healing, and the process that we're engaged in navigating the lower world and integration of the logic mind with the spirit mind is the work of healing. And it's active, it's dynamic. And so and that's it. So they were very clear, don't look for change, because you don't know what that change needs to be. All you know is the process that you're engaged in is the work. And I ended with them on the notion that the dream I am in is real, and I am awake within that dream. And that's the practice, that's the healing, that's the work. So I thanked them and I returned.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. That's very true, right? It's a different aspect of reality that we've been taught to ignore since we were, became old enough to stop playing with invisible friends, right? At some age, most of you were told, stop playing with your invisible friends, they're not real, or something like that. Before that, it was fine to have your quote fantasies, right? And then we put away the fact that there's this whole other world that's a non-physical world. And when we make changes to the non-physical world, this is what you were said, it's already dynamic. You're already doing the work.
You're doing the work. You're cleaning the pond and braiding sweetgrass. That pond is just not getting clear, even though you're removing all the moss. But you want it to be clear because you used to swim there, and you
correct.
That's what was happening in my journey.
That's right. And that's a beautiful metaphor that she uses in that book. It's a fantastic metaphor about, as she's cleaning the pond and it's taking forever, right? She has a number of really strong teachings in that way within her book. Anybody who hasn't read Braiding Sweetgrass, get yourself a copy and read it. It's a really beautiful book. It's merging indigenous wisdom and science. And it's really a beautifully written book. Robin Wall Kimmer, I think, is the author. Highly recommend it. But yes, this act, it's dynamic, right? It's already done in the spirit world. We just don't know how it's going to manifest yet in the physical world.
Right, and they're very clear not to get caught up in that.
Right. Right. It's like you know, if you're shooting you're shooting at something like shooting a pool ball, you shoot it, you don't actually look at it and go, you know what I mean? It's you hit it, you don't have to see where it goes until after you hit it, kind of thing. It's like it's done. It's already on its trajectory. You're not going to change it after it's done. So yeah. Thank you, Jim. Would anybody else like to share about their journeys? Linda.
My messages are always pretty simple. I went down the world and specifically requested a visit with the whales, and they were just it's like it's getting a little warmer down here was the message, and it's hard for us to communicate sometimes. And then the dolphins came in and said, we can, when we're having difficulty or whatever, we move quicker than the whales, and so we can get out of situations faster than the whales can. And that was basically the message that I got. There was no extras involved, but it kind of makes sense. So that was the information I got.
Thank you, Linda. Hey, would anybody else like to share? Larry.
Yeah, so I had some things that actually sounded like a combination of a number of things that came up here today. I was shown I was trying to journey on the energy that's the human energy that's part of our earth and our environment at the moment, and all of the chaos and toxicity that's going on there, and hoping to shine some light on that and do some healing on that. And I've shown a stream that was flowing into an ever constricted chasm, and it was getting more and more turbulent. But then eventually it came out into this beautiful, calm lake, very similar to what Anna was talking about. And then Jim was talking about water, and I'm listening to what everybody's talking about water today. And it eventually it will eventually get to a point where it's calm, and it's and this toxicity will have dissipated. And I asked what I could do to facilitate that, and I was told one, that there are already things going on to do that, and then Alicia brings up the fact that she's teaching children, and you brought up the fact that your daughter already knows that stuff, and so what I'm supposed to do is be kind. Be kind to the people around me, and that will ripple out, and then that's my part, apparently, is to be kind. Yeah.
You are kind. So that's beautiful. One second, Alicia. Thank you, Larry, for saying that. And also, when you say that, it reminds me of what Lindsay said about this thing coming to the surface, and it's turbulent while it's coming up, and then it will be resolved, and we'll have a place of calmness. Alicia.
Yeah, part of the message I didn't share, when I know I mentioned that awareness, self-love, and consistent practices, which was a little bit like Jim's message, like keep doing your thing, but also too, the kindness, that's self-love. Like what it said to me was, as we continue, I don't know where y'all are at, but I'm continuing to work on self-love and the healing and loving myself more and more. As you do that, what creates is the kindness, as you call it, and that the way you speak to people and your frequency changes. And when they're with you, even if they're not at your frequency, they can feel that. And there's such a beautiful feeling to that, that they're going to want to do that themselves. So that's, Larry, what you're rippling out. And when you have that feeling, that frequency, that self-love, that kindness, then you want to share that with others, and you want to do right by the earth and everything else. So
I agree. That's exactly kind of where that was going. Thank you.
Yes, I just felt like I had to share that with you, because I did have more of that in mind. I just didn't share it all.
Yeah, thanks for articulating that, Alicia. That's really important. It's part of that is also how you carry your medicine, right? We talk about that a lot in, especially in level 2, about carrying our medicine and making sure that we use it wisely, right? Because we have this kind, empathic, Larry, we talked about that actually, like your kind, giving, empathic nature, but then you give of yourself to the point where it's not reciprocated. And so it's becoming wise about how we carry our medicine. And so we can carry our medicine in that way. And then we're always making a choice. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Right? If I say yes to being, a volunteer member of the board of my condo association, what am I saying no to in the rest of my life? Larry doesn't mind me saying that, because we had some discussions about that before the summer. And so what am I saying no to? Do I no longer have the time? Am I no longer have the peace to hold that space for my partner or my friend or that random person? And does that change my vibration so that I'm no longer carrying that in that peaceful way? Right. And so this is the importance of the decisions that we make day by day, moment by moment, is to how can I be receptive to what's around me and carry my medicine properly so that I can, bring it forth in right relationship, right? Not to allow it to be abused by others, and at the same time be generous with it with those who are in right relationship. That's the dance. That's part of the dance. And we work more when we get into level 3, as you guys who are joining level 3 will find out, in cultivating that medicine even more strongly for ourselves, right? So that we can hold that medicine more strongly and we have more to give, right? And Alicia, you've done that walk, and Christiane, you've done that walk with me already. So you know what that means about that cultivation, and then how that has then led to profound shifts in your life that on the surface may have nothing to do with shamanism, right? You moved somewhere. Both of you moved somewhere to rearrange things. A lot of people move during my classes. It's funny. Like there's a lot of people I know. I mean, not everybody. Some people are really set in their home life and they're good with it. But some people, they move. They're like, okay, it's time. It's time for us to go to a different spot because it wasn't working at that place. Yeah. So right on. Thank you guys very much. And just want to check in. Does anybody else want to share before we say goodbye for the day? Okay, well, thank you all very much for being here and participating in our Web of Life Shamanic Journey Circle. We will see you all next month, first Wednesday of September. And I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you all.